Hello, greetings, and salutations. Welcome to Problematics. Please excuse the mess. Just sit tight while we try to get our work area ready. In the meanwhile, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jonathan, and I'm the leader of this motley crew. Right now I'm studying mechanical engineering in college, and I suppose you could say I've grown rather addicted to problems, or solving them, that is. Over time, we started calling ourselves Problematics and just ran with it. In order to sharpen our skills, we've started taking on a series of projects to help us prepare for whatever comes next. I'm looking forward to working with some really amazing friends as we work together to do what we love. We know everything is just getting started, but we're aiming to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the summer and build this channel into something really amazing as time moves on. There's no telling what's to come, but more on that later. Right now, it's about time to begin. So without further ado, let's get this project started. So we're going to be doing a carving project today, which all starts with this plank of wood that I have clamped down to make sure it doesn't run away from me. We mark off the cuts and grab the classic handsaw to cut a chunk of wood at least large enough to fit the printout of our logo. Even though I'm using a manually operated saw in this video, I'm still taking caution to keep my hand as far away from the blade as I can. Since I have almost total control over the blade, I don't have to be so cautious as to use a saw stop, but it would be just as easy for me to lose a finger if I moved my supporting hand into the path of the blade on accident. So let's go over all the parts we're going to be using during this project. You've already seen the wood, but there's more to this. We've got our Dremel and the associated bits, especially the carving bits, which we'll be using later. There's our clear coat enamel, and the Umu 30, which is in two parts, A and B. Some Elmer's glue, the template, sanding mask so I don't breathe in sawdust, a sanding sponge, and two measuring cups. Those will come in handy later. First, we're going to need to sand off the block to make sure that it's smooth and that the surface is ready for the glue. Of course, really Elmer's glue sticks to about anything, but I like to sand surfaces before I glue just to make sure that the bond is tight. Now once we've completed two phases of sanding, a rough and a fine phase, as you can see right here, then we'll prepare to put the template on. Alright, that's enough sanding there, buddy. Thank you. Now we can finally add the Elmer's glue, which you can add in just about any way, so long as you smooth it down later, with a squeegee or your fingers, whatever. Just make sure it's rubbed in nice and smooth and flat. We want to make sure that there are no air bubbles that can form without our say-so. I'm going to add some more around the edges here, just to make sure that the template forms to the wood properly. The less this thing moves, the better for my carving. So we smooth all this stuff down, and when we're finally done with that, then we can pick up the template and put it down. I'm going to take the back of my hand here, again I don't have a squeegee, and just smooth it out. This will make sure there are no air bubbles and that my carving is as accurate as possible. Positioning the template, it'll be time to start carving. And that's going to take a while. It took me 2 to 6 hours to actually complete that. So, in this time, I'd like to introduce the Geek Out moments. What that is essentially us going over some of the science and factoids behind the stuff that we're doing. Unfortunately, I don't have anything for you right now, because all I'm doing is taking a rotary tool and shoving it into some wood. But in the future, there will be this small little segment where we go over the science behind some of the cool stuff that we're doing. If, of course, you don't like the Geek Out moment or listening to me jabber on, then there'll be some conveniently placed links for you to skip past my smooth, mellifluous voice. So, with the carving finally completed, it's time to get started stripping away that paper. I'm going to attach the wire brush attachment to my Dremel, and then just make a few passes, getting rid of all the paper and not being too worried about stripping away some of the wood. I'm going to come back over it with a rough piece of sandpaper and the sanding sponge later, and now leave it with a nice smooth finish. This makes it ready for the enamel, which comes on after I run over it again with the smooth sponge. I'll give that a good spray and leave it to sit for about 15 to 30 minutes. Then come back, sand it again with the sponge, and spray the enamel. This all takes some time, so just jam out to the music. We're almost done. At this point, the carving's actually complete, but there's a little more to this particular project because I wanted to make a plastic mold of what I carved. So instead of just leaving it where it is, I took this foam board that you see here and my hot glue gun, and we're just making a firm seal around the impression that I made in the wood. What this is going to do is keep any liquid from spilling out when I take the Umu 30, mix it together, and pour it in to make the cast. It takes just a little bit for me to think through how I want to piece everything together, if things are too long or too short, but you really don't have to be too exact with this box. It just has to hold the liquid, and I can pour it to whatever depth I want. So, once all that's poured, it's time for my favorite part, mixing together the Umu 30. Now, before we can begin with Umu 30, we probably need to take a moment to note some of the issues with working with this stuff. It's a really fun product, but it can also be really dangerous. You don't want to breathe in the fumes, and you need to work in a well-ventilated area. Otherwise, you could end up dealing with some birth defects, reproductive issues, or suffocate. Most likely not suffocate since there's plenty of air in here, but seriously, don't breathe the fumes from this in on purpose. It's just a bad idea. I also don't want to get any of this on my skin, so I'm going to grab my gloves and put them on. It's not really registered particularly as a skin irritant, but it's still not the best idea to get random chemical compounds on your hands when you don't know exactly what they are. So, this is a 1-to-1 mixture. These bottles make it really easy for me to tell that I've got 8 ounces in each cup, and the instructions direct you to stir both parts before you mix them with each other. This is pretty simple, so take them out, pour them together, and I'm just prepping everything right here. One thing that you need to note is that this stuff has a 10-minute working time, so as soon as I mix these together, they're going to react, heat up, and the clock is ticking. It's going to start congealing, the plastic is going to set as quickly as it can, and I'm going to have to get it in the mold. Of course, everything's right there, but if you have a more complex project and you have a lot of nicks and grooves that you need to shove everything into, then you have to be careful about how much time your stuff has to work with. Now, the company that makes this, Smooth On, has multiple different products with different cure and set times. So if this particular Umu 30 isn't what you need, then you can always find one that has a longer cure time that you can play with. Now, like you just saw, pouring that in there was no trouble at all. It took like 10 seconds. But I had all this plastic that was just going to get wasted and get stuck in the bottle, so I got a little frantic, ran somewhere random in the garage, grab a pump that was just sitting there, pull the plunger out, and cast that in plastic as well. So this is our finished product. Unfortunately, there's another product that you're supposed to use from Smooth On that makes it a lot easier to get the plastic out of the mold. I had to chisel this thing out, but as you can see, it still turned out pretty cool. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I just want to thank you guys for coming out and watching. If you liked the video, like, rate, and subscribe, and check out the descriptions below for the music and some of the information about the materials that we use. If you want to contact me, just leave some information in the comments below. Let us know how we did. Can we do something better? Am I really boring you? Give me a shout out and I'll let you know what we can do. Thanks again, this is our first time doing this, and welcome to Problematics.